woodcraft, helping you make woodwork.
Small box projects, great little smoother. I think originally it was not advertised as such, but I think it was designed for children or small people to assist in the woodworking process in the wood building factories back east. Certainly in they call the Connecticut Valley in Massachusetts the gold mine of plains. In that area, and that's where in the 1800s where furniture was built in North Carolina, South Carolina, in the Virginias. Yeah, that's where a lot of these things are, and that's where you can find gazillions of them at flea markets and trade shows and gun shows. And yeah, this is a woodcraft #1, super design. The V3, as this one is as nice as they come. Woodcraft learned its lesson through a couple of iterations of building these, and yeah, I wouldn't mind having this in my shop either. We've got Woodcraft, like I said, has a whole line of great spoke shaves and planes now that I would use in a heartbeat. Yeah, I believe this is less than this is probably only 115-ish, somewhere in there. Yeah, it's nice. Okay, did I answer everybody's question so far? What the gentleman asked, where I get them? Yeah, you just have to pay attention to places where you find antiques, and I would say that's what I would call these. Although I use them, I don't think that there is any of these that were less than 120 years old at this point.
Which one of those is you said that you used to clean out the bottom of a dado?
This one here, the bullnose rabbit plane. Okay, it's got a blade. It's about 3/4 of an inch wide, easy to manipulate up and down on the blade, easy to sharpen. Puts a nice smooth sheen right in the bottom of a dado. And this one was this is clean the sides. And there are actually 2 of these made. This is the right-handed model. There is a left-handed model for cleaning left-handed guys' stuff.
That probably is to go with the grain instead of against the grain.
This one, yes, this design, absolutely. The gentleman brings up a good point. Which is the best way to use this? And the left-handed one against the grain, right-handed one against the grain, depending on which way the grain is running in your dado. Yeah, absolutely. Good point, sir.
In an article on one of the woodworking things, and he had something like this that he was using to clean it out. Get both hands and pull it.
There are additional cutters that were used for barrel making, and some of them are called scorps, and there's also a draw blade, draw knife. The folks that carve large pieces of wood mostly use those. People who originally out here in the West used a lot of those because they made fence posts out of them. Taking big sheaves of wood off trees. Yeah, and some of the old scorps and some of the old pull knives or draw knives. Yeah, they're huge with a big blade. I think we can order some, but they have some at some of the big R's or whatever they call them now.
You can see the difference when you're sharpening the old versus the new blades. Is there any difference in quality of steel between something done, let's say, 1880 to 1980?
Oh, most definitely. The steel, the processing of modern steel is just phenomenal now. Some of these I stick to these old blades because I'm an old guy, and I like using them, and I'm going to use them until they wear out. But the steel in them is not as good as what's made today in woodcraft or some of the other brands like Lee Nielsen and some of the other modern makers. There's a number of them that make really nice planes. there's some that are made in Europe that are just fantastic, but they want $2,000 for them, and it's just, they're really beautiful and nice, but you know, this one came across in a wagon from back east with my granddad and my grandma, great-grandma and great-granddad, and that, you know, it has that feel to it. I know it's made stuff that still exists today, and some of the modern tools are not as nice, so to speak, with have that kind of heritage and history to them. That's kind of why I like them. I will say that if you get planes, don't modify them. If you ever want to sell them again, as a collector and people who collect planes, don't carve your initials in them. Don't hammer your initials into them. Don't drill holes in them. If you need to modify it, get another type of plane. It just makes me cry. I see some people who will take a plane, they'll drill a hole right in the toe, big hole, and they hang it on a peg. Makes me cry. The best thing to do is just rest them like this somewhere in a cabinet or on your bench. If you have to hang them up, there's a way to make a little loop of rope or paracord or something and just put it around here and hang it on a nail and just let it hang. Please don't drill or hammer anything into these planes. It'll pay off in the end if you ever want to sell them. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's take one apart and see what we need to do here. Okay, as your handout, as you can see, you got the toe and the heel, or if you think of it as a piece of machinery, the front bumper and the back bumper, right? Because same type of care with tuning a plane as you tune with a car. Okay, again, the toe and the heel, the front knob, the handle or tote. Okay, tote, they're great because if you use them a lot, they tend to crack, and so you can find these pretty readily out online. Important part, I don't ever put my hand on these unless I'm actually in the process of planing, because they're older and the wood has a tendency to crack, and I stay as low as possible in pushing these through wood, and avoid going high on it because that's the leverage and you could crack it. And it's also better get a smoother push and a smoother surface if you're low on the tote. Okay. Next thing we have is a lever cap. This secures the blade and the chip breaker to the frog. Okay, and we'll go over that in just a minute. This is the chip breaker. It's to secure your work after you're done fiddling with it. And you do have to fiddle with these a lot. The next thing we have is a chip breaker. This is a very important piece here. What it does is it moves the wood out of the cut and away as a piece of waste. Okay, if you notice the shape of it at the user end and the way it hooks to the blade, I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's got the little bow there. Okay, that little bow takes the waste wood and curls it. Okay, it curls it up and hopefully into a fine, very thin shaving. Okay, and in this case, when you line it up, you want it as close to the cutting surface as you want the chip to be. Okay, the bigger the distance between the blade edge and the chip breaker bump, the bigger the waste is going to be. Get it nice and tight down against the edge, and you'll take a nice shaving out of the wood. That's my advice. Depending on the type of plane that it is, that seems to work best. Okay, and this works in consonance with the mouth here of the plane. Okay, to get the ideal chip. okay, from the wood. And again, this allows the wood to curl and allows you to remove it, and that's the chip breaker. And this has got a couple names: the iron, or the cutter, or the blade. This is what cuts, and this is the most important, obviously the most important feature of the plane. Okay, this is going to allow you, with some adjustment, to take this type of cuts and make the width of cut and the direction of cut that you want. Okay, and it takes a little bit of practice to get it lined up.
How do you determine how aggressive you want the blade to be?
Well, there's a number of ways to do that. You can grind the bevel that you like on the blade. Okay, beveling on I think the best bevels go from about 20 degrees to about 35 degrees, and you can hollow ground them, part hollow, part flat, or flat grind them, and it depends kind of on the softness of the wood. You know that these are designed for hardwoods, obviously, and they cut better on hardwoods. It's just the way the blades are. You can grind those to whatever is a really hard wood. Say you're working with oak or some really dense stuff, maybe Purple Heart or some of the other denser woods. Yeah, you want to lower that angle on the bevel, which you can do, and I'll talk about that in a second. But in consonance with the mouth here, you can adjust with this adjustment wheel right here, you can adjust where that goes in the mouth. Okay, and these are all simply screwed on in machined holes in the frog. And the frog jumps off. Okay, this is a lateral movement control handle right here. It moves the blade back and forth in the mouth to get the best cut, or to angle the cut where you want it on a wood. Say if you're doing some joining and you want to emphasize one part of the blade or another, you can do that with this lever here. And not all planes have these, just mostly the larger planes. And that the lateral movement indicates the age of these planes too. They're not the first generation, but they're very old. Okay, and this screw locks the chip breaker blade and lever cap onto the frog. Now, one of the things that's very important in woodworking is flat, like I mentioned earlier. You should flatten this. Okay, take the time to flatten this with, whether you can use a file or you can lap it on several different ways. Okay, just make sure it's flat. Okay, take the screw out, lap it, and make sure that's flat. Even more important is to lap the bottom, to make it square to the sole of the plane, which we'll talk about here in a minute. This is what connects the cutting surfaces, chip breaker and lever cap, to the plane body. Okay, and you can adjust the depth of cut if this is set up correctly by using this turning wheel here. And normally, when it's on the plane, you can just, what I do is I just use the 2 fingers to move it. Okay, and you can adjust that on the fly, or you can adjust it as is necessary. And again, flatten these surfaces either. This is the part that connects it with the sole. Okay, and again, you can use a file. Okay.